Brought to you by Moonbeam Multimedia.
This is 16 to 1, a podcast about education, teaching, and learning. Hello there.
Hi.
How has your week of so far no school been?
We've had some weather, so it's been nice.
Yep.
We're using our snow days.
We've been snowed in.
We
lots
have
of
been.
Lots of schools in the area canceled. Lots of miles of road still to plow around here before people can get out of their houses. So you had a note about something going on affecting Ohio schools and Ohio listeners. Did you want to talk about that at all before we got into the main topic today?
I'll put this link in the show notes, but the state of Ohio has changed how kindergarten enrollment dates are working for this upcoming school year. And instead of it being a decision that was made by each district, it is now a state mandated date. So according to Fox 8 News, this says that under current law, students can enroll in kindergarten if they are age 5 by either September 30th or August 1st, with school districts permitted to pick the enrollment date. House Bill 114, which was signed into law on December 19th, requires all districts to admit any child who is 5 years old by the first day of school. So they remove the band, basically, of where a school can choose to cut off an age requirement.
Okay, explain this to me. What is gained by this legislation? What are they trying? What is the advantage of having? Is it just to standardize it across the state?
I'm not sure.
Is it
what they're gaining?
To put control of it at the state level, just because there's a general.
I mean, it seems like that's what they want, since that's what they did.
Yeah,
I don't quite know what they're gaining.
Okay,
by setting this date. I'm really not sure what the long game is there, but
yeah,
I talked to some of the people I know in education, and they were all displeased with this because this could have big effects on school districts, staffing effects, and things like that.
It should only have a really severe impact for a short time frame, right? Until everybody gets on the same page about...
I mean, I think one reason that the schools kind of pick those dates is because of projected class size each year.
Oh, okay. So if you've got like other teachers that need to take over maybe two fourth grade classes.
Like we've had some groups come through my district that were like bumper groups, basically, where it was just a much larger group, and like we had to hire someone new at each level until like fourth grade or something like that. Now that's kind of dramatic, obviously, but some of those groups do just kind of happen naturally from time to time.
This is a case where maybe the flexibility is better left to districts.
The conversations I've been having with people suggest that districts appreciate the flexibility to say, actually, there's another 12 kids born since then, and that would bump our ratios to X.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to understand.
We're not comfortable with this.
The only truly useful scenario I can imagine is if you're moving school districts all of a sudden or something within the state. You're going from one district in the state to another district in the state, and you want a consistent way to count on your kid being able to be enrolled if you move for a job or something like that.
I don't know how it would work if you were a kindergartner enrolled at a school where you were allowed to enroll and then moved. I mean, that window is so small, though.
Yeah.
Like, that's like such a...
So it seems like a kind of centralization of control of it, just kind of on principle type of move.
I can't see long enough out to anticipate what they were looking at.
Right.
But I don't personally see it. But I'm also a high school educator, so take this for what you will.
Yeah, I'm just struggling to understand this one.
I also just wonder if this is a way to like not have to consider how to better support parents with costs related to childcare. Because that's a big factor for people, obviously, is like, if I can send my kid, I'm going to, because I save how many tens of thousands of dollars by not sending them to childcare for another year or something like that, which is just like me pulling out of, you know.
That is interesting. Okay, so it does kind of limit parents to having to do something about childcare up until perhaps like a little bit of a bigger window. Yeah. Right? Oh, years longer.
This is probably the state's way of being like, well, their birthday is this.
Does this provide a more steady runway for like daycare and like pre-K programs and stuff? Does it kind of extend by standardizing a start time?
It could hurt them because they could be losing children that they would have had an additional year.
That's what I was thinking. I thought it maybe was the other way around, that it pushed things out and advantaged them. Yeah, I don't know. I really just don't know.
I don't know what to expect from that.
We'll keep an eye on it. We'll report back.
We'll keep up on it. We'll see what comes of it.
Yeah. Okay. Before we get into the main topic today, just want to remind you, go ahead and sign up for the 16 to 1 podcast email newsletter. It's where you can get latest updates, episode announcements, resources, workshop offerings, stuff like that from Moonbeam Multimedia. That is us. And if there's a story in your local educational community that you think we should cover, we'd love to hear about that on the show. Please contact us using our website or write at hello@16to1.com, all spelled out.
This episode is just us.
It is.
It's been a minute.
We had a great time talking with Tina to kick off our new season here in the winter 26.
We just laugh so much with her.
We always do.
Yeah, she's a gem.
Really enjoyed that conversation.
And to be friends with Tina is to do exactly what we did, which was to laugh a whole bunch and then talk about some of the most bare soul awareness moments. It's all happening in the same conversation. Yeah. Just an incredible gift of hers. And that's Tina's effect on everyone. You know, we've done our episode on Mr. Rogers, and his whole quote about the helpers, like, Tina's a helper.
Finding the helpers.
Yeah.
Look to the helpers.
She's just so great. So we loved having her, and we hope all of you laughed even a fraction of how much we laughed, because it was great.
Yeah. And speaking of Mr. Rogers, a Pittsburgh native.
Yeah.
You lined up that transition so well.
Thank you.
We're going to be talking.
I finally figured it out. 6 years of podcast recording, and I finally figured out what Chelsea wanted me to be writing.
How to transition.
I finally figured it out.
You figured it out a long time ago.
Well, actually, this is kind of, I mean, we do love Pittsburgh. You and I, we
love
Pittsburgh.
To us.
It's a neighboring city, sort of. Yeah, we're whatever.
We're Steelers fans.
We are Steelers fans. We love Pittsburgh people. And so we actually started watching The Pit.
Yes.
On HBO.
All of our friends started recommending it to our Pittsburgh friends. Were recommending it.
Yeah. Everyone in my life is like, how have you missed this point of TV? And
so what is The Pit for those who don't know?
The Pit is a really interesting premise of a show, which is Noah Wyle is one of the ER doctors, the head ER doctors. And each season is one shift in the Pittsburgh emergency room, this trauma center. And so they call it The Pit, lovingly. And so season 1 was just one shift. And now season 2 is out. So we watched it. We loved it. Now here we are finding another connection to talk about our podcast episode today.
Yes. And we're going to tackle the Freedom House ambulance service. This relates to The Pit because they even mention it in one episode. Why don't you set the scene for us a little bit? Tell us about this service, when it was running, what it did, what neighborhoods it served. Yeah.
Okay, so this important piece, actually, I would say, of American history is coming from 1967 to 1975. That's when the Freedom House ambulance service was running in Pittsburgh. So this is some learning that Chelsea and I had to do as part of this, which was to understand what formalized ambulance service was and is and when it came to be. Maybe it's all of the MASH I watched as a child.
Yes, that is totally what it is. It's the weird war media of our youth.
Yeah.
Or on other people's youth. The weird war media from probably about 1920 on, World War I on. There's just a lot of media that includes ambulances.
Yeah.
But that's not like your everyday civilian ambulance. No, that's combat medics.
Well, and if they were in your communities, they were private ambulances. Right. Which was basically a van. To take you to help.
It didn't occur to us that ambulance services weren't kind of ubiquitous. They just weren't prior to this time.
Now, these dates are going to vary based on where you lived, when you lived there, the size, right, all of these types of things. So there are going to be a lot of factors for when other cities would see ambulance services come into play. But for Pittsburgh and this group, we're talking in the mid-60s to mid-70s. So like we said, emergency calls prior to the formalized ambulance service, they were handled by police. Sometimes they sent the funeral home.
Oh,
workers to you.
that's skipping over a lot of steps. Okay.
It was a good-sized vehicle.
I'm sure it's
for
efficient.
moving someone.
Yikes.
But these people didn't have medical training. So if you called for help, the quickest thing you were going to get was a ride, which for some might have been enough, but
To the
for
hospital?
others was not.
Okay.
Yes. So, like I said, these people who were driving, these police, these funeral home drivers, they did not have the training. So they were not going to assist this person.
There was no training to have, by the way. There's no such thing as like EMS training. That's why they didn't have it. So anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, as you can imagine, though, when you start considering a place like Pittsburgh or other cities, their racial tension over time, especially in the 60s and 70s, and then being in this case, what's known as the Hill District of Pittsburgh, for a lot of people, calling an emergency line was pointless. They might not ever show up.
Yeah.
They might show up and refuse to help.
They might show up and cause more trouble than they would have by not being there.
Right. And so this is what's going on in what's called the Hill District of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Historically African-American neighborhood.
So 1967, the state of Pennsylvania, they've received grant funding that's going to help, quote, stimulate the economies of what are known as historically underserviced neighborhoods. And of course, most of these residents are at or below the poverty line.
Yeah, I put that in quotes just to draw attention to the fact that the grant may have been for economic stimulation, but what it kind of meant was that the city of Pittsburgh was just like raising black neighborhoods and replacing them with things that white people wanted.
Yes. And if I could put in a quick plug.
Yes, please.
If you are interested in reading about Pittsburgh throughout the 1900s, the 20th century, then I really recommend reading August Wilson. The works of August
playwright?
Wilson. Yes. I used to teach fences. Incredible story. But August Wilson is familiar and knows Pittsburgh and has really actually kind of helped me understand even the service better by understanding his work and the stories he talked about. So if you're interested in reading about Pittsburgh at this time, I really recommend August Wilson.
The English teacher is English teachering.
Well, excuse me. Anyways, I would also recommend the important work of another Pittsburgh native, Mr. Rogers.
Fred Rogers.
I'm also a big fan of, I'm just name dropping Pennsylvanians.
Every famous Pittsburgher.
Andy Warhol, have you heard of him?
I passingly.
He's famous for soup.
Famous for soup.
And Marilyn Monroe. Okay. Anyways, I really did have a good plug, and now we're here. Anyways. So, these grants are to help build and fund job trainings and jobs for people where it's badly needed. So we cut to a guy named Phil Hallen. Phil Hallen was the president of the Maurice Falk Medical Fund, and he had been an ambulance driver. And he reached out to a group that already exists that was called the Freedom House Enterprises. This group was working to help support voter registration, and they were doing other social projects in the community
they were like a
to support themselves.
Social action group.
Whatever that was, they were like eager to do it. So it's not just voter registration. I want to stress that. They were doing whatever their communities needed from them. So that's who Phil Hallen goes to as part of receiving this grant to say, this is the money we're getting, and this is a group who's already working in these communities, who knows people. And so they set out to create an ambulance service, and Hallen partners with a very famous doctor, Peter Saffer, who's known as the father of CPR. The goal is to have Dr. Saffer help Hallen establish this, what will be called the Freedom House Ambulance Service, and to help build and offer quality training and education to first responders and also to these people and these community groups that they're trying to build this ambulance service from. And so they work together to create it. These people that they're training to work on this ambulance service probably don't have any experience in the medical world at all.
Mm-hmm.
These are people who might not have even graduated high school. They might have been veterans who had returned home from various deployments. Most of these people, though, are Black men who called the Hill District home. Now, they have some money. They have 2 people who are willing to help build it, but they have a lot of hurdles still. And so Dr. Saffer is the one to credit with a lot of this. He was also not only the grandfather of CPR, but he used to paralyze his volunteers to demonstrate assisted breathing techniques, which is a nightmare.
Yeah. Paralyzed with like inject them with something that made them stop breathing to prove that he would breathe for them.
He would be like, look at my party trick. I am perfecting it.
You sometimes don't think about what you have to do to create medical science and that kind of research.
Can you imagine today being like, look, I have this theory. If I break everybody's ribs while I sing Pink Pony Club, you'll live. Anyways, Dr. Saffer is the person who established the country's first ICU at Baltimore City Hospital. And he also was the one that helped build the first intensive care training program at the University of Pittsburgh. It feels dramatic to be like, he changed the world, but he really did.
He did. I think part of the reason this program, the Freedom House Ambulance Service, was like so successful and why it ended up becoming the paradigm for emergency medical training and services across the country. But I think that whole process doesn't necessarily make sense without the invention of techniques like CPR. Yeah. Because if you don't have something like CPR, what is the point of rushing to someone?
What's the point of a really long ride? You know what I mean? To the hospital. Right. Especially when the medical supply was bulkier at the time. They didn't have the streamline and efficiency that we would have now. And it's certainly because of this opportunity that we even have it.
Yeah. Speaking of bulky medical supplies, this guy had to get in contact with Norwegian doll makers to try to convince them to make CPR dummies for training purposes because there were none. But
why not just drug your friends and do that to them instead?
Yeah, I mean that worked for him when he was like, oh, maybe we should not practice on live subjects from now on.
That's lame.
An innovator in the doll making field as well. Fun fact.
There we go. That'll be the footnote for Dr. Saffer. This work, though, and the creation and success of this entire ambulance service, the Freedom House Ambulance Service, I would say almost certainly because of another doctor that Dr. Saffer brought in to work with him. And that was Dr. Nancy Caroline. She had been working with Dr. Saffer while completing her residency in Pittsburgh. And she was named the first medical director for the Freedom House, and she helped to build that ambulance service team. She wrote the book that became the paramedic field guide. It's called Emergency Care in the Streets, and the 9th edition of that book came out in 2022.
Yeah.
I looked through her book as I was researching this textbook.
I did too.
There's more than 50 chapters with content covering things like chemical concerns, crime scene preservation, what to do in the event of terrorist attacks. And this textbook was the first of its kind. There weren't other textbooks addressing emergency care in the streets for the first 10 years after this came out. The fact that it's still being updated.
It's still the book, from what I can tell.
The book. And I looked at it on Amazon. It was $212. Oh, yeah, but I did consider it.
It's a textbook price.
So Nancy is helping to support not only these EMS workers, but she also wants the training to go further to people like firefighters and other first responders, because they're going to be the people that are there as well. And so they should be learning it just like the EMS people are. So she advocated for that training, that technology. She pioneered the use of an EKG while in the ambulance. And over time, her goal was always to help train these workers for calls to be answered within 3 minutes of receiving it. That's life-changing.
We were mentioning when we got into this because we were watching The Pit. Everything in The Pit is framed in terms of like seconds, like number of seconds or number of minutes. We're talking that is the difference between life or death in some of these crisis situations, and just being able to calculate things. You can't imagine how much every second counts in that kind of scenario.
Literally life and death. Dr. Caroline also, what made her so effective, I think, as a leader of this service was that she was doing it with them. She was in the ambulance. She was working the shifts. She was in communities, in the neighborhoods, in places where, frankly, probably seeing a white woman wouldn't have been what people expected.
There's a really good PBS special, and we watched it. We'll share it in the notes because it's definitely worth a watch. It's a pretty comprehensive look at this program, but they were mentioning several of the participants of the Freedom House Ambulance Service, like the members of it, were interviewed for it. And a couple of them mentioned that there was a bit of apprehension. I mean, with both of them, like both of the clinicians who show up and start telling these guys what to do in their neighborhood. But they were saying like, okay, well, Dr. Caroline proved pretty quickly that she was going to embed herself in, and everything with them was going to like They were saying she would like work way, way, way long shifts, like way past when she should have gone to bed to try to like ride along with these guys and be there right in the action with them. And she'd just be around all of the time to build trust and stuff.
Well, and what better way to figure out what you need than by doing it yourself? Like her being in the ambulance, her being with the people that she's been training, right? She can see in real time, oh, we haven't talked about how to do this, or, you know, whatever it might be.
Also social, like de-escalation training, like social situations. They were talking about how they had to earn, and did successfully earn, community trust, but that it didn't necessarily come naturally.
Yeah. I was just going to say, the work that these people are doing was inspired by the loss of real humans to these people, to these founders, to these trainers, to these medical professionals. One of them lost his daughter to an asthma attack. Another one of the stories came about that, I think it had been like the Pittsburgh mayor or something like that, had a stroke at home and wasn't cared for quickly enough. So not only are these stories important because of who these people are, but their stories are what's like kind of informing them to do this kind of work, because they're seeing people die from things that they personally don't believe that they should be. If had they gotten the care that was required, they save lives.
Mm-hmm. So these paramedics, they're not only trained on technique. Dr. Caroline and Dr. Saffer both kind of talked about how important this was at various times. I found this excerpt from Pitt Med magazine. It was talking about their medical education. It said, quote, "Their training far exceeded any existing standards. 300 hours of classroom and clinical work in anatomy and physiology, first aid, resuscitation, medical ethics, and legalities," end quote. The Freedom House program also worked with participants who didn't have a high school diploma and helped them earn their GEDs. I thought that was really cool. A couple of people mentioned this feeling like they were building the plane while flying it, I think was the quote. But it was pretty obvious that this was a group of people that were very respectful of one another and really, really passionate about the work. There's an award named after Dr. Nancy Caroline at the University of Pittsburgh Saffer Center for Resuscitation Research. Do you want to read that dedication?
It says this: Dr. Nancy Caroline, one of Dr. Saffer's early trainees who went on to become the mother of CPR in Israel and later the head of the Israeli Red Cross, died on December 12, 2002. In her honor, we've created the Nancy Caroline Fellow Award at the Saffer Center. This award is given annually to the fellow working with the Saffer Center scientist who has made the greatest contribution to the field of resuscitation medicine. So cool. The other thing that was so fascinating as we were watching the PBS special and just reading their interviews was like, the thought of like, you are in a vehicle that is being built for the purpose of what you're doing, and there is no framework. And so a lot of it was like, where should we put this? How often do we need this? You don't think about the steps of piecing out an ambulance to be like, this will save people. Like, we just kind of see them and we're like, nice.
Economizing space and organizing tools.
Dr. Caroline like did not back down from that. Like, she was doing all kinds of interesting work to make things accessible in the ambulance. It's just kind of funny to imagine all of these people crammed in a van saying, man, if we had this or if we had this, and then it happening. Like, I can't imagine how exciting that work must have been to be doing that in real time.
Where there's no pattern to follow about.
Right. And Dr. Caroline would also take in the men that she was working with and training into areas of the hospital where they like weren't supposed to be, because she was like, you need to see this. She like suffered zero fools throughout this process. She was like, I don't care that this door says these people only, these guys need to see it and we're going to go see it. And so she would just take them in.
Yeah, we'll talk about this in a minute, but this whole project surfaces this tension between rules and permissions and who is allowed to participate and who's allowed to be in what space and why.
I would just think it would be so interesting to have been on the streets of Pittsburgh, seeing this group roll around together and to see like kind of the community or the society response to this white woman in the middle of all of it.
Let's talk about how they were received, because as with other social activism things involving especially race at this time, this got a lot of political resistance from Pittsburgh. The Freedom House ambulance service ran really only for a couple of years until 1975, when there's a new mayor shows up. City of Pittsburgh announces that they are going to open their own EMS service and training. This was basically the end of the Freedom House ambulance service. Dr. Nancy Caroline advocated very heavily for medical professionals from the Freedom House ambulance service to be hired by the city as part of their EMS service, but many of the Freedom House workers were offered non-medical positions in the new setup, and many of them declined to participate in this new arrangement.
Yeah, I mean, some of these people had years of medical experience at this point.
It made me so mad to hear that part of the documentary.
Yeah, I know.
So regardless of that program running out of time, the work that the group did ended up being some of the most important medical research of the century. They learned how to better set up and build ambulances like you were talking about, serving the needs of critical care patients. Freedom House first responders were able to get care to people in a matter of minutes in neighborhoods that had never had access to that kind of care before, and they saved, they think, more than 200 people in the few years of their existence. And the work that they did is still evident today with a lot of the practices that they started, running ambulance care and EMT departments now. I loved this program as a model for education that is a form of public infrastructure instead of a credentialing pipeline.
I love that.
It prompts a big question about the relative value of expertise, especially when expertise is in a field that is evolving constantly. Medical science doesn't stay the same. You don't learn medical science and then move on and say, I have learned medical science. Yeah. But we have a system that sort of acts like that is the case.
Yeah.
The Pit does make some interesting commentary on this too.
I was just going to say that.
They're all about this hierarchy of experience and expertise and the attendings and the blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, you got it right. You got to go up the chain. And like, you can't make this decision unless so-and-so is here.
They'll be like, well, this medical journal says this is an appropriate treatment, and this one says this is an appropriate treatment. And so watching those conversations, you can see how the establishment of something formal is going to have all these repercussions later on.
It ossifies learning.
Yeah.
But you need ossification of that learning because you need to know this procedure works in X percent of cases across everywhere, and you need to formalize that training. It's just really, really hard because the procedures and the standards exist because they are proven to help,
be there. Yep.
To save lives, to whatever. But then you've got the tension with the newbies who are showing up saying, hey, I'm here to make waves, or hey, I'm here to put people who aren't supposed to be here in this room. That almost maverick attitude that Dr. Caroline had. She's both a highly credentialed medical professional and somebody who is willing to say we need to kind of set aside our highfalutin ideals of what works and what doesn't right now. One thing that I was wondering about was what the trade-offs are when you're training or learning or being educated in a super high stakes real world service delivery scenario.
A little stressful, maybe.
The adrenaline is constantly going. And I'm sure that there are advantages to that kind of learning, or at least for some people. I don't know, I guess.
People that I know and have loved that are in medical fields, right? Some of our best friends, hearing them talk about like, yeah, I could like sit in a classroom, but until I was doing this, this, and this, I wasn't really getting the experience of the thing, which I do think is a little similar to education in some ways. It's very easy to sit in a classroom and be like, someday in my class, I'll do this. And then you get in there and you're like, you didn't tell me they'd all be blind kittens running around and screaming at each other, which is what some days it feels like. So I would think that that part of it is probably consistent for both of us, right? You can sit in a classroom and learn this about this medical whatever, and I can learn about this as a soon-to-be teacher. But what happens in the classroom, what happens in the OR, what happens in the ER, totally different things.
Yeah.
So I think there are tons of jobs in which, until you're doing it, it probably feels, some kind of way.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to use your big teacher or philosopher brain again.
Big brain. Big brain.
How do you think that education that's aimed at empowerment differs structurally from education that's aimed at workforce preparation?
So something that I was thinking about as I was looking at the foundation and creation of this ambulance service, there wasn't a lot of what we would call bloat now. It was the two guys at the top, right? One who helped get the funding. The other was the Dr. Saffer. And then from there, Dr. Saffer, when he met Nancy Caroline, was like, this is it. And so I think that it being kind of a core group who are functioning together is actually what empowers everybody else under them. And everybody working with them would immediately see that we all need to be very present and part of it for this to be worthwhile. So I think it's actually
leanness, organizational leanness.
I think that is what helps in this case, because imagine how empowered you would feel if you are working, the whole higher up, the only way up is through these three people, and they all have their hearts in the right place. They're coming from an earnest place of being like, this is the work that needs to be done. I don't think there's anything better you can ask for. Like, if you've got a core group of people who all have a very core group of alignments, beliefs, I think Nancy Caroline felt emboldened and supported to do her work, which then would make her a really effective leader to do the same thing with a group of people that are willing and capable and eager and all of that. And we know that the people who worked for the Freedom House cared deeply about it. It was their community. All of the right factors are there to make for like a really core strengthening group, I think, is what I'm trying to say.
Where do you think a model like this would run into resistance today?
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine?
Who would oppose it?
Today?
Yeah.
Probably a lot of people. Probably from, most importantly, the insurance company that would insure the ambulance for doing this work.
Insurance companies. Oh my God.
That was my first thought, actually.
That should have been my first thought. Ready to tackle what we learned in the last week or so?
Yeah, you go first.
Me first?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm an outer space girly. Astronauts, astronomers, astrophysicists. That's all my jam.
You're an airhead.
I'm rude.
Get it?
Come
on, that was funny.
Okay. So
that's so rude.
In Chile.
That you were saying
in the
Chile.
Atacama Desert, there is a huge telescope being built called the Giant Magellan Telescope.
Clicking on this link, I'd like to see this.
You have to read this story. This is fascinating. It's only 40% done right now. It's going to cost $2.5 billion. So this is a huge project. But this story, the thing I learned about it, that it was kind of a cool crossover with other nerdy interests of mine, that being video games. The people at this Giant Magellan Telescope, the senior engineers and mechanical engineers working on this project, are using Unreal Engine, which is a game development engine, to build a centimeter for centimeter replica of this giant telescope.
Before they built it.
Before the telescope exists, so that they can do employee training and visualize and come up with protocols and all this kind of stuff before it's built. And they're like, the physics engine is perfect for this. Everything acts like we expect it to act in the real world. Stuff moves around. You can interact with the environment.
So cool.
Yeah. So
this thing looks like it's going to be amazing.
They've called this like simulation program. They've named it Bob, which stands for Builder of Observatory Behavior. Okay, cool.
Let's keep it simple.
People are like, yeah, we used to have to do this kind of stuff in like CAD software, and now we're just doing it in the Unity game engine. So,
you know what? That's actually kind of interesting, because I just saw a girl I went to high school with shared this thing that she went and did. They're about to build a house, and they went to this place in Cleveland that does it's like a
virtual floor plan.
Yeah, so you could walk the room before you. It kind of sounds like
project the floor plan onto yeah. So anyway, it used to require a lot of really detailed technical training in CAD, AutoCAD systems, that kind of thing.
And now it doesn't.
Now we're using video game engines. What about you? What have you learned?
Well, I saw a video of a very fragile secret, sometimes called painting, that's on display in Dublin, Ireland. So the clip is of this incredible painting, and it's in this little case, and it has these little doors that shut on it and closes it. The painting is done by a guy named Frederick William Burton. He died in 1900. And the title is Hallelujah and Hildebrand, The Meeting on the Turret Stairs, 1864. I'm not going to go into the history of it all, but it's just a really beautiful painting. And it's so fragile because it's a watercolor, and they don't age well. They're very
That's a watercolor?
Yeah.
Well, we got to find an image of this to link to, because it's very vibrant.
I'll include it in the show notes so you can see it too. So yeah, it's this painting. It's only available, I think, for like 4 hours a week, just because they're trying to preserve it It's kind of like a piece of art about a like stolen moment, like a secret moment that probably shouldn't have happened when it did. And so you can get like, on your head about that if you think to, but it's just really beautiful. And I love to see art being cared for. And I love to see art being shared. Anything else?
I think that's it.
All right. We will be back in 2 weeks.
Talk to you in 2 weeks.
Hopefully it's a little bit warmer. Bye.
Bye. Hello, listeners, and thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of 16 to 1. This show is produced by a 2-woman team. Your co-hosts Katie Day, our lead researcher and social media manager, and Chelsea Adams, that's me. I edit and produce the show, and I also make the music you hear in our episodes. Visit our website at 16to1.com for show notes and resources, or to get in touch with us. 16 to 1 is sponsored by Moonbeam Multimedia, a firm that partners with civic innovators, educators, and mission-driven organizations to help create stronger communities.
Also, big fan of Pittsburgh's work with pierogies. Okay, I'm done now.